Oh my god. I am resident of Collinwood, Joel Sains for YouTube. That is my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. That is my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk the town that dreaded sundown. It is based upon the real life murders that took place in Texarkana. Uh, so this here, the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, a term coined by the contemporary press, was a series of four unsolved serial murders and related violent crimes committed in the Texarkana region of the United States in early 1946. All murders took place upon the weekends between February 3rd and what was it? Or no, February 22nd and May 3rd. Sorry, I got that reversed. So crazy. And two movies have been made about this. One is the 1976 version, and there's another made by Blumhouse. I've seen both. I prefer the 1976 version. And no, not because it has Ben Johnson in it, but it is a great reason to watch. So here's my question to you guys. When did you first learn about the murders and watch the original movie? What?
Patrick?
Oh, I think it was around 9 this morning, and I floated in and out of consciousness as I watched the film, and as this happened, the acting in my dreams got really bad, unless it was Ben Johnson, Andrew Prine, or Dawn Wells. Then it was good. It's kind of rough in the performance department in this one. It is not an actor's studio exercise. But in a way, it sort of has a Russ Meyer quality in that the acting is so bad, and I'm notoriously easy on actors, but that it somehow loops back in on itself and it becomes realistic.
Yeah.
It's very strange how that works. I mean, it's you have these sort of wooden line deliveries that you only hear in real life. It's a strange film. It's a really, really in its kind of stark quality in a lot of ways. It's it has a hyper realism to it. It's sort of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in that regard, where some of the acting's great and some of the acting's not so great. Not of the family in Texas Chainsaw, of the hippies that pick them up, and it feels like real life. It feels like a documentary.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Butch?
Circa 81, 82, when I first started reading Fangoria, there was a picture of Dawn Wells with blood on her chin, and of course, like most of my generation, I knew her from Gilligan's Island, and I was like, what the hell is this? And to paint a little picture for you younger folk, this is before there were video stores. This was before streaming and on demand. So it's like,
where did you see this on Movie Channel or something? Spotlight?
No, it was years. I think I rented it as the first time. Okay. I mean, maybe on the notorious pre-Fox 43 they may have shown part of it, but that's when I first heard about it. And like I said, years later, well, I think I rented it or somebody did. And I agree with Patrick. One of my favorite descriptors of this film is uneven, and I think that describes it very well. I mean, you do have some good actors: Ben Johnson, Andrew Prine, Dawn Wells, the ones he's already mentioned. And then you have Charles Pierce, who you may not know, but let me just say, the Legend of Boggy Creek.
Man,
that is my favorite MST3K episode because it fits it so well.
There is a Boggy Creek movie in the massive Boggy Creek franchise, because didn't they make more than one sequel?
I know they made. There was two. I heard there was going to be a 3, but I don't know that it got very far.
The droids were going to be in all of them. I know that. The Boggy Creek thing. I saw Boggy Creek 2 in
The Legend Continues.
Well, is that what it was called? Boggy Creek 2: The Legend Continues? which I think may be the worst film I've ever seen in a theater. It made Howling 2 look like look like The Dresser.
There are three great things about Howling 2. One is Christopher Lee. Two are located on Sybil Danning, but that's a whole other story. And now finding out about the
you dare say that in a movie with Red Brown?
I'm not brave enough. About the murders, again, it probably I think it was either in Fangoria or Famous Monsters. They just mentioned it in passing, and got to that age where go to the library, pull out the encyclopedia. But so I found out about that way, and then one day I was going down the street and found that on the side of the road. And
what'd you find? Missed it. Oh, wow. Lucky street.
Sometimes it's got some good stuff. What about you, Joel? When did you first see this, and when did you first learn about these movies, the murders?
In elementary school, I learned about the murders.
Real?
Yeah. My history teacher, I've talked about him before. He taught us a vast array of things. He didn't just stick to the text of a book. So he goes, one day he walks in, he goes, "Do you guys want to learn about true crime?" And we're like, "Yeah." And one of there were many cases he talked about. The first one he ever talked about was D.B. Cooper. And one of the ones he also included the Kennedy assassination because it was a crime. But one of the things he included was the murders of Texarkana. And he goes, "There's a movie about this." And he said, "If I get permission from the school, I'll show it to you." Now, he didn't get permission. I didn't see the movie in school, but I begged my mom to rent the movie. And she said, "Fine, we'll go rent it." And she let me watch the movie. So
what was it rated? Does anybody know? What was this rated?
What?
The rating
it
for
had
the film.
rated R.
I would think, but sometimes them things snuck in.
Yeah, R.
Okay.
R. Yeah, I asked.
I don't know about when. I know Patrick and I went to school in a earlier time than you did. There wasn't many R-rated movies that teachers got to show. However,
he didn't show.
There was one that we got to see, and ironically, it was actually a film I'd already seen. It was Excalibur.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
They had two cuts of Excalibur.
Yeah.
They had one for schools. But it sounds like you got to see the whole thing.
I was really taken back the fact that 5 people seemingly at random are murdered on a weekend in 1946. I just found that just like my eyes bulged. I'm like, Jesus, why would you just? And many people had many theories. Like somebody thought it was like a post World War II vet, suffering from PTSD. Who knows? Some consider somebody maybe a draft dodger. Who because back then there were such things. They never solved it ever, which was another shocking thing. Not that they solved D.B. Cooper either, but D.B. Cooper didn't murder anybody, though he was a terrorist. I was just really shocked by it. And then when I watched the movie, I knew who Ben Johnson was because, like I said, I watched Westerns with my grandfather. I knew who the woman was from Gilligan's Island, but that's all the faces I recognize. Other than this does feel like Texas.
Well, you're not going to recognize the face of the killer.
This does feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in every way, but I think even this feels a lot more raw than it because it's based upon real text. It's based upon a real life situation, and it even says the names have been changed. Probably to protect identities, obviously.
I believe it's to protect the innocent, Joel.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the innocent, the innocent. Butch Rosenbalm has never met an innocent criminal he didn't personally hand into the law.
I'm not talking about that, Joel.
I'll tell you something. You
Tell
got
me.
it. I mean, any crime like this that remains unsolved, right? Because this is unsolved.
Yeah.
Is in its own way a strange and dark, horrible masterpiece. I think of this. A man has climbed Mount Everest. He's gone to the bottom of the ocean. He has fired rockets to the moon, split the atom. He's achieved miracles in every field of human endeavor except crime.
Yeah.
Sounds vaguely familiar. I was trying to look it up real quick, and I'm not doing well. There is somebody. I was trying to find his name. A gentleman who, well, maybe he wasn't a gentleman. His wife actually talked to the police, and new details only the police and the killer would know. And he was arrested. This guy was arrested on an unrelated crime. Apparently he was also in a kind of a 3 strikes and you're out deal, and he was in prison for several years and was in prison while this was when this came out. So the theory was, and I'm sorry, I wish I could find it. He was the killer, but he was not arrested for this.
No, no.
Did he have himself arrested knowing that the film would eventually come out and that he would be safe from having to see it if he were in jail? I'm just kidding. I'm just making
Oh my god. Oh my god. This, like I said, this feels, watching it back again, it feels even more raw than what Texas Chainsaw Massacre did. But I think it's just because it's based upon a real crime. Texas Chainsaw Massacre isn't. I think that is this movie acted well? No, it's not. Other than Ben Johnson and the people you mentioned,
Andrew Bryan, the
but
great
it's
Andrew
not.
Bryan.
Yeah, but I think that helps sort of, like, if I never lived in Texarkana, obviously, but if I were living in Texarkana and I watched this movie, I could appreciate what they were trying to do. They were trying to recapture that moment in time. Not just the look, but the feel.
You know who needs to do this story is Joe Lansdale. He's the king of that region in terms of horror and storytelling and grit and hideousness. Jewel, have you seen his show Hap and Leonard?
No.
You would have to be forcibly restrained. You would love it so much.
Where can I watch it?
I don't know, but you need to look it up. It's 3 seasons. They're each short because they're, those made for streaming seasons. My God, is it one of the best TV series? It's Archive 81 quality, maybe better.
Yeah. I'll check it out.
The suspect that I was talking about, his name, and I may be mispronouncing it, is Ewell Sweeney. Youellswinney. He was a car thief and a counterfeiter. His wife Peggy confessed in great deal that Sweeney was the Phantom Killer and had killed Booker and Martin. Her story changed in some details. Police believe she was withholding information. Police were able to independently verify some of the details, such as the location of a victim's possession when she said Ewell had discarded them. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Sweeney was never charged with the murder, was instead tried and imprisoned as a habitual offender for car theft. So he could have been it.
Did they suspect John Merrick, aka the Elephant Man?
No,
he had that same back.
Exactly. Well, they did go to New Jersey and check out an unrelated camp circa 1981. For those of you that don't get the joke, Jason Voorhees, Friday 13th Part 2. You know, one thing that always does strike me about this is you get to see what a good actor Ben Johnson is. And you know, you don't normally say that because Ben Johnson is not required to do much other than show up, ride a horse, maybe use a lasso because the man was a real award-winning cowboy, and you know, talk tough. And this movie shows that when he was given the chance, he could be a good actor. You know, maybe not great, maybe never win an Oscar, but you know,
he does his job.
Really was believable.
Isn't that nice? When that, I'm sorry, Jewel, just want to say, isn't that nice when actors who never get to do that sort of thing get to do that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Can you think of another performance where, you know, an actor who generally doesn't get to do a lot really gets to take center stage like that?
Put on the spot, no. Later I'll go, oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well,
but it's great when it happens.
Yes.
yeah. I would say an actor who got to do that. Well, he was a comedian too, but I'm gonna kick myself. I'm thinking about Good Morning Vietnam.
Robin Williams?
Robin Williams. Because when you think of comedians, and I do think, I know he wasn't the only comedian who was in acting, but Good Will Hunting, Good Morning Vietnam, you say Mrs. Doubtfire is a comedy, but he dresses a, you know.
Photoshop? No, that's not the name of it.
It's a
Smile
1 hour photo.
1 hour photo.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's very good.
You know,
speaking of Robin Williams comedies or semi-comedies where someone who normally doesn't get to act gets to act, The Survivors with Walter Matthau, except it's Jerry Reed who plays an assassin, a thief and an assassin in it, and he's great.
Yeah. I just watched a movie about a hitman. Not that.
What was it?
I think it was called The Killer. It had the guy who played Magneto in it. It's on Netflix.
I only know the John Woo movie called The Killer.
Well, it might.
How about Ian McKellen or Fassbender? Magneto.
Yeah. Okay. He plays like a hitman. It's very weird how they set it up and stuff, but
seems like I just heard about that.
Yeah, I just watched it on here a couple weeks ago or something. It's okay. It's okay. I will say that Ben Johnson in Terror Train, he does not get enough credit being with Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie. Because I
forgot he was in that.
Because he really does a great job of if you grew up with Ben Johnson the way sort of you, me, Butch, we all have, that we know him from Westerns, and not to just see him in this, but to see him in Terror Train and see him act like because he was very friendly. He's talking to, like, the way he talked, I can imagine that's how a conductor would talk. And I'm thinking, that's really good. And I love how there's that emotional moment where he grabs Jamie Lee Curtis's character. He goes, "You got to calm down." He knows what she just saw, like her dead friend's body, but the way he grabbed her. I've seen people grab people like that once, and I was just like, damn. I don't know if Ben Johnson.
You know what the first movie I saw Ben Johnson is?
Time Walker.
Close. Red Dawn.
Oh.
Really? He's in Red Dawn? What's he play? He plays Dawn.
He plays Red. He's the father of the two girls that's his granddaughters, his family heirlooms, as he calls them, with
Patrick Swayze.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got stuck on Patrick, and I couldn't get any further. Yep, the two daughters are his granddaughters. And I remember I've told the story about how we got HBO. watching it, and I kept going, I know that guy from somewhere. I just recognized his voice. And honestly, at the time, I had no idea who Ben Johnson was. I didn't watch Westerns, so I don't know what I saw him in. But his voice was incredibly familiar. Probably because my dad watched Westerns. I was trying to sleep, and it was a small house, and,
What did you guys think of the setting, the film setting?
It feels authentic.
Yeah, about as authentic as you can get for Texarkana.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, it's filmed in Texarkana.
Texarkana,
At least
yeah.
parts of it.
Yeah. I think they did a great job. Telling a real life story and bringing it to film is probably one of the most uneasiest things you can do. I always feel there's films that they don't really do history justice in a way. I think the closest, like for me, like when I watch a war movie that's based upon a real life battle or something and not fictionalized, that the Stacy Keach's The USS Indianapolis, I thought was done very, very well. Not Nicolas Cage's, but I think too, when you get into history, it's always something I've always sort of debated. Is it's tough because you're sort of taking and talking about real life people who lived through an experience that was pure terror to them who lived it, and I'm thinking, I mean, again, it's easy to say because there wasn't the technology there was back then in 1946. It's like, why would somebody even go out of the way, murder 5 people? You know what I mean? It's just insane.
And on the weekend, you're supposed to be resting then, for God's sake. So did this man's wife make him go out and kill those people when he's there, listening to a boxing match and relaxing?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. It happened on most of the murders happen on like a lover's lane or like an event, like a road that people would go park on. The last murder took place at a farmhouse, which they do say in Texarkana. Like if you watch the remake, they say about there's a lot of farmhouses in Texarkana. There's no shortage of them.
And the thing about it happening on Lover's Lane, well, he's not going to do it on the road where you can drive the fastest. He can't run that fast. Yeah. He's got to find some place where the cars stay still.
Yeah, and you are purposely trying to get away and out of the eyesight of everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, Joel.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is more raw. I get the point you're making, and I don't disagree with it. But as I said earlier, this film is very uneven. I mean, there's points where, man, it's hard. It's flat out hard. It's scary.
You'll have to. Oh, sorry, Butch. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then there's points where, like, when the two policemen are trying to act like they're a couple to decoy, and one of the cops just like trying to fill the other cop's fake boob, and admitted, you know what? I'm sure that type of scene has happened in real life several times, but it was like mood whiplash, and to me. One thing about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you have to watch it. You can't pause it. You can't have commercials. You watch it straight through, and when you get through, you feel like you need to go take a shower or wash your hands because you feel like you've watched a snuff film, and you just feel uneasy. And there are points where this film gets to that, but then I don't know. I blame it on Pierce just because I think he's a funny director. It's like he wants to be serious, but it walks it back a little bit with some of the silliness. And if Texas is a 9, this is a 9 or 10. This is like a 6.5 or a 7. It's just that if in my mind, if you had left the more comedic stuff out, it would have worked better. But also, you have to give the audience time to before you launch into the next thing. So I get that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it doesn't in this film, but it does for you, obviously, and good for you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I respectfully disagree.
You'll have to forgive me, Butch, for saying it's better than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've been in Tijuana sexually massaging donkeys, but that's for Gordon Demowski.
Wait, I was gonna make an incredible Mr. Olympic joke, and that just you got rid of that one.
That went swimmingly.
Yeah. Oh my God. Now I do think that
More like mule sane.
Oh my God. Oh my
You made an
God.
ass out of yourself with that.
I know. Oh my God. No, but I do think that
You're gonna be so confused.
the comedy point you made is spot on. Like the firecracker character was like, he's here for comedy. Like you could like tell right away when he goes back up to the keys and stuff. I'm thinking, I get why they have that because the subject matter they're covering, because it's a real life thing, but I don't think the characters necessarily needed either. Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was real.
Yeah,
in terms of local color.
It may be. I mean, oh, interesting point. The poster. You know who did this?
Who?
A then unknown Ralph McQuarrie.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah. Best known for basically visually putting Darth Vader together for George Lucas, among other things.
Speaking of which, last night I obtained. I was out on that same road, Butch, that you found this film. Star Wars 4K 77. Do you know about this?
Yes.
I've got it.
I've
got
it. Have you watched it?
Yeah.
Is it as good as I hope?
It's as good as we remembered.
Oh man,
I'm excited. I'm excited for my Once Upon a Time in the West 4K coming next month. So,
you saw? I was going to ask if you saw what I tagged you in, but
well, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that to my attention because for anybody who doesn't know, if you go watch the special features of Once Upon a Time in the West, they talk about how the movie in Europe was different from the American version, because there's a scene where Bronson's character has like a scar on his face or a mark on his face. The sheriff's men beat Bronson's character up, but you never see that in the American version, because in the European version there was longer. Claudia Carnell talks about that in the interview. She says, I have seen every version of Once Upon a Time in the West, and I believe her. So,
yeah, I just saw that and I was like, I know who needs to know about that.
Yeah, thank you though. Thank you. I knew about that. It's really interesting to think about, because you always hear about movie, like you always don't see the full version of the movie you fell in love with. And that is true, because like, for example, my cousin, the first Halloween, like he didn't watch the theatrical version of John Carpenter's Halloween. He watched the television version they put on USA, where it's like Laurie, like they have that scene where Dr. Loomis is talking to the doctors and stuff like that.
The NBC version.
Is that the one with the conversation in the van? Or am I thinking of two?
Yeah. No, this is the one where they're having a conversation with the doctors at the hospital. Loomis is telling them to not transfer him to a maximum security ward, and they're like, we just don't see the reason. Like, and he asked them all sorts of questions. They're just basically dismissing him. So yeah, there's stuff in that movie that isn't in the theatrical version of John Carpenter's Halloween, obviously. Guys, is there anything you want to add about this movie or the real life event?
It was very sad.
Yeah.
I've made jokes about the movie, but not about the event.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hideous, and a friend of mine. I moved downtown a few years ago for a while, and I had lots of friends who wouldn't come downtown, stupid reasons. And a friend of mine who lived downtown told them they were crazy because they said, "Look, if I'm like out in the country or something and someone attacks me, I can yell and scream all I want. There's no one around to hear me for miles or Sarah miles. But if I'm in a city, at least there are people around who can ignore me, but they're going to have to ignore me." And as someone who is a little more cityfied than people who aren't, it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But wow, rural areas just scare the heck out of me because of that isolation. And this movie captures that really well.
Yeah. I live in a rural area, so yeah.
Yeah, having been one of the people who did go to his house downtown, part of that comes from there was a big fire downtown, early '80s, and downtown, like so many other cities, went downhill. Not that it became crime-ridden Gotham City or anything, but it got a reputation, and it has taken years, if not decades, to rebuild it. And I'm not gonna lie to you. When I would go to Patrick's house, I would always be a little nervous, even though, like he said, I mean, there's people all around.
Try living there.
Yeah, I mean,
I was happy to move out.
I was happy.
My door entered onto an alley.
It was different, man. This movie is. Do you? If anybody's watching this, do you have to watch it? No. It's not groundbreaking. It's veers a little bit into the so bad it's good with some of the acting. The more professional actors do a really good job. The thing is, this movie actually has something in common with the first Count Yorga film. For anybody that's ever seen it, there's a scene in Count Yorga. It's towards the end. Yorga comes from around a room and comes running towards the camera, and it's kind of slow motion. And he's like, and his fangs are out. And there is something about that. Every time I see it, it unnerves me just a little bit. I know who Robert Quarry is. I know that's fake teeth. I know it's slow, but it's effective. It works. And this film there's scenes like that in there. You all know in particular one scene I'm talking about, and I'm not going to mention it to make people go look for it. But this at times is a very effective film. It can be a little unnerving, like Joe said in like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's what George Romero used to say the pioneer is the guy with the arrows in his back. This is kind of like that. It's something that makes you. It's horror at times should make you go, I didn't want to see that. And this movie has a decent amount of that. It is not masterpiece theater. It will never be on there, hopefully. But it may be better than we were giving it a little bit of credit for. So what'd you say, Joel? Was it on Tubi?
Yeah, it's on Tubi for free. You can also. Sorry to interrupt you, Butch. It was not just that movie, not just the original version, but the remake as well.
I've never seen the remake. I was going to ask you about that.
It's not. Here's the thing about the remake, and I want to make this very clear. The remake is not based upon the actual events itself. What the remake does, and I use this term loosely, it sequels the movies, and I hated it. It's like, what if the Texarkana murders happened in a modern day setting? It's just no.
Somebody,
Does he have a plastic bag from Walmart that he puts over his head, and does he start to suffocate in the middle of it and just keep passing out before he can kill anyone?
No, I did like the person I did like seeing in it was Anthony Anderson, because he's a good actor. I always liked him. But
who's Anthony Anderson? Who's Anthony Anderson?
He in the movie or as an actor?
In real life, I've never heard of this man.
He's an actor who's been on many television shows and some movies. He was in the first Transformers movie. He was most notably as a villain in the FX show The Shield. He's a really good actor. I've enjoyed anything I've ever seen him in. He plays the famous Lone Ranger character in the remake, or the famous the character Ben Johnson played. That the real life. Yeah.
He was on
Clinton Stillsbury.
Yeah.
He was on a show, if I remember correctly, called Blackish.
Yeah.
He does. You've probably seen him. He does a commercial now about diabetes.
Yeah.
He's like staring at you really close. He's like, "Does this make you uncomfortable? It should. Talk to your daughter about diabetes." I'm not making fun of diabetes, but
no.
He's a pretty good actor. Somebody told somebody, and I don't remember who, compared the remake / sequel. They said it was kind of, it made them think of Scream.
Yeah, in a way.
Kind of, if you will, meta. This real thing had happened, and they're making a film about it, and like maybe it inspired somebody to start killing the actor. I don't remember exactly what all they said.
No, that's right there. That's a great point. Yeah.
Okay.
Butch, speaking of actors, I'll ask you. When they were making Battle for the Planet of the Apes, there'd been a lot of money spent by Pillsbury on product placement in the film, and they got very upset about Claude Akins being cast in the film because that was supposed to be Poppin' Fresh, because he was already Aldo. Butch liked it. Butch liked that joke. Tried it the other night, it died.
You see, Joel, here's the thing, and I've probably said this way too many times. When Patrick and I were in role-playing groups together, we'd be sitting there and a situation come up, and I'd have a joke form in my head. Just as it's getting together, Patrick starts saying it. So our sense of humor is very,
it got pretty eerie at times.
It did.
The coincidence
and it would I won't say what made me mad, but it'd be like, damn, his joke was better. And I just they're like, whatever.
There were a few times when I would just start to say it, and you would just start laughing because you knew what I was about to say, and I would start laughing, and I wouldn't end up saying it. It was the psychic in joke.
Here's my favorite, and I know we're totally off schedule, and Joel's trying to wrap this up, and I apologize. There was a guy we used to game with by the name of Fred, and Fred admitted he wanted to run a Star Trek game, but he was intimidated by mine and Patrick's knowledge of Star Trek, and that we would that wouldn't happen because blah 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 blah.
Well, and it never would have stopped Alex Kurtzman.
It sure hasn't. And he said something about, well, the ship gets stuck in the sun. He gives some, setup. And Patrick and I both turn and look at each other. And in unison, vit plasma from the warp nacelles.
Yeah.
And in doubt. The look on Fred's face was something like...
That was a great moment in geekery.
He never mentioned running a Star Trek game ever again.
Probably doing. He killed it accidentally through our love.
But check this movie out, kids, folks, boys and girls, men and women, children of all ages.
Just for Dawn Wells. We forget not mentioning Dawn Wells. She's in a real roughie.
Yeah.
If you want to see Dawn Wells and not see Marianne, don't get me wrong. She's not naked. She doesn't form sex acts. It's not that kind of stuff. But here's somebody that for you, Patrick, for the an actor known for one thing, getting to do something else. This is not Mary Ann. Dawn gets to act, and unfortunately, this is probably the one thing other than Gilligan's Island she's known for. And I hate to say it, that's probably it. I mean,
yeah, but she did one of the Boggy Creek movies for the same director.
According to Wikipedia, she filmed her scenes in like a day and a half, and the only reason she did it was because she was either friends or fond of Pierce, and just he said, "Hey, I got a role for it." She's like, "Okay, I'll be there," and just filmed her scenes and didn't read the script until she got there or anything. So,
did I ever tell you guys my rooster joke? I think I told it to one of you.
Not me.
Maybe it was Gordon. Lay on us.
I can't say it on air. It's dirty.
Here's one that we can't say on air. Why are chickens so cool?
Why?
Because.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
It's Irish and stands outdoors all day.
Before I hit stop recording,
patio furniture.
That is Butch Rosenbalm. That is Patrick McCray. Link to the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box.
This one's not going to help sales, Jewel.
Oh my god!
Is that
not going to help sales?